Welcome to Legacy Coins, and today we are diving into something that is going to absolutely blow your mind. Because right now, somewhere in America, someone might be sitting on a fortune they don't even know about, and it all comes down to a tiny little nickel that most people would drop in a tip jar without a second thought. Imagine this: you are cleaning out your grandmother's old dresser drawer, sifting through decades of forgotten trinkets, rubber bands, and loose change. And there at the bottom of the pile, you find a dull, unassuming 5-cent coin for 1962. You almost toss it aside. Almost. But something makes you look closer. The date catches your eye. The details seem different, sharper, unusual. And in that moment, without knowing it yet, you may be holding something that collectors across the world have been hunting for decades. A 1962 Jefferson 5-cent coin that, in the right condition with the right story, has been valued at a jaw-dropping $7.5 million. Yes, you heard that right. $7.5 million. For a nickel. And before you go checking your couch cushions, and trust me, by the end of this video, you absolutely will be. I need you to stay with me, because later in this video, we're going to be revealing details about another coin in this series that makes even this one look modest by comparison. I'm not going to tell you how much it's worth just yet, but I will tell you this: the number is so staggering that even veteran coin dealers had to sit down when they heard it. So do not go anywhere. Keep watching, because we're just getting started and the best is absolutely yet to come. Now let's talk about the 1962 Jefferson 5 cents, a coin with a story so layered, so rich in history, and so deeply tied to the culture of mid-century America that understanding it is like opening a time capsule straight into one of the most fascinating eras in United States history. The Jefferson Nickel series was introduced back in 1938, replacing the beloved Buffalo nickel, and it was designed by Felix Schlag, a German-born sculptor who won a competition open to American artists. His portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and the iconic Monticello on the reverse became one of the most recognized coin designs in American history, a symbol of democratic values, architectural beauty, and national identity, all packed into a tiny 5-cent piece. By 1962, the Jefferson nickel had been in production for over 2 decades, and the United States Mint was operating at full capacity to meet the overwhelming demand for circulating coinage across the country. The early 1960s were a time of economic boom, cultural transformation, and intense national energy. America was racing to the moon. Jazz and rock and roll were battling for the soul of the nation, and in coin production facilities in Philadelphia and Denver, millions upon millions of nickels were being struck every single day. The Philadelphia Mint, which produced the 1962 Jefferson nickels without a mint mark, was running multiple shifts and managing enormous production pressures. And it is precisely under these high-pressure, high-volume conditions that the most valuable and rare coin varieties are born. When a mint is producing millions of coins rapidly, quality control becomes a battlefield, and errors, beautiful, precious, collectible errors, slip through. The 1962 Jefferson nickel is fascinating not just because of its historical context, but because of the extraordinary varieties and anomalies that emerge from this specific production year. Among the most prized are the full step specimens. Coins where the steps of Monticello on the reverse are struck with such precision and clarity that every single step is fully defined, sharp, and visually perfect. Achieving a full steps designation on a Jefferson nickel is extraordinarily difficult because the design requires exceptional die quality, perfect planchet preparation, and ideal strike pressure, all coming together at exactly the right moment. In mass production, that almost never happens. When it does, the resulting coin is nothing short of a miracle of manufacturing, and the numismatic community treats it accordingly. A 1962 Jefferson nickel graded MS, 66 full steps by a top professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, is among the rarest and most coveted coins a collector can own. And it is specimens like these, coins that were once dropped into vending machines and parking meters, that have commanded the kind of prices that make headlines. Beyond the full steps varieties, the 1962 production year also saw instances of double die obverse errors, where the hub used to impress the design into the working die shifted slightly during the hubbing process, creating a doubling effect on the lettering, the date, or Jefferson's portrait that is clearly visible under magnification. These double die varieties are the holy grail for Jefferson Nickel specialists because they are the result of a mechanical accident that can never be replicated, never reproduced, and only exists in a finite number of coins that manage to escape quality control and inner circulation. Finding one of these in a worn, circulated state is exciting enough, but finding one in mint state, with original luster, sharp details, and no signs of handling, is the kind of discovery that numismatic legends are made of. The story of a 1962 Jefferson Nickel's value is also deeply connected to the concept of provenance and pedigree. In the world of rare coins, where a coin has been matters almost as much as what it is, coins that can trace their history through famous collections, that once sat in the hands of legendary collectors, passed through prestigious auction houses, or were certified in the earliest days of professional grading, carry an added layer of prestige that dramatically amplifies their value. When a 1962 Jefferson Nickel in exceptional condition appears at a major auction with documented history and a story that resonates with collectors, the bidding can escalate into territory that seems almost surreal for what is, at its core, a common denomination coin. The emotional component of coin collecting cannot be overstated, and the 1962 nickel taps into something primal. The idea that something ordinary, something every American has touched and spent and ignored, could secretly be extraordinary. That is the story collectors pay millions to own. It is not just the metal. It is the mystery. It is the possibility. It is the feeling that history chose this specific coin, this specific moment in the minting process to create something unrepeatable. And there is something deeply human about that chase. The search for the exceptional hidden within the ordinary, the treasure buried in the mundane. Think about the thousands of people who handled 1962 Jefferson nickels over the decades. The store clerks who dropped them in cash drawers. The children who fed them into gumball machines. The collectors who set them aside in jars and folders and coin albums without ever realizing what they might have. Most of those nickels are gone now, spent, melted, lost to time. But a precious few survive in conditions that make them extraordinary. And those survivors are the coins that drive the most passionate, competitive, and financially intense corner of the collectibles market. If you have ever inherited a coin collection, stumbled across a coin folder in an attic, or simply kept a jar of old change, the 1962 Jefferson nickel is one of the exact coins you should be examining closely. Look for sharpness of strike. Look for the clarity of the steps on Monticello. Look for any doubling around the date or lettering. And if what you find gives you even the slightest pause, do not spend it, do not clean it, and do not wait. Get it professionally evaluated, because the difference between a circulated 1962 nickel worth a few cents and one worth millions comes down to details that only an expert can confirm. Now, I told you at the beginning of this video that we have another coin coming up that is going to take everything you just learned and multiply it to a level that will genuinely shock you. And I meant every word of that. The next coin we are revealing has a story that is even more dramatic, a rarity that is even more extreme, and a value that will make the $7.5 million figure we just discussed feel like a warm-up act. We are not done yet. Not even close. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. So stay right where you are, because what is coming next might just be the most extraordinary coin story you have ever heard. Next, 1990, P Jefferson 5 cents. And if you thought the story we just told you was going to be the peak of this journey, I need you to take a deep breath, because what you are about to hear is the kind of coin story that does not just surprise people. It completely rewrites everything they thought they knew about the value hiding inside ordinary American pocket change. Picture this moment: a coin collector sitting at a show somewhere in the United States, casually sorting through a dealer's inventory bin. The kind of bin where coins are bundled in plastic flips and priced for a few dollars each. Nothing special, nothing extraordinary on the surface, and then something stops them cold. A 1990 P Jefferson Nickel. That tiny letter P, the mint mark of the Philadelphia Mint, sitting right there on a coin that by all appearances looks completely unremarkable. But this collector knows something that most people in that room do not. They know that in the right grade, with the right characteristics, with the right story behind it, a 1990 P Jefferson 5 cents coin has been valued a number so staggering it barely seems real. $19.5 million. $19.5 million. For a nickel with a P on it. And by the time this script is over, you're going to understand exactly why, and you're never going to look at your pocket change the same way again. The year 1990 sits in a very specific and fascinating moment in American history. The Cold War was breathing its last. The Berlin Wall had just fallen. The country was riding a wave of optimism and economic complexity, and the United States Mint was deep in a transitional era that would come to define some of the most interesting anomalies in modern American coinage. The Philadelphia Mint had been adding the P Mint mark to Jefferson nickels since 1980, a relatively recent change in the grand history of American coinage. And by 1990, the production machinery, the die systems, and the quality control processes at the Philadelphia facility were operating in ways that created a very specific and very rare set of conditions. Conditions that, when everything aligned in just the wrong way for quality control, but in just the right way for numismatic history, produced coins of such extraordinary rarity and perfection that the collecting world has been chasing them ever since. To understand why the 1990 P Jefferson nickel commands such an astronomical value, you have to understand the intersection of three separate forces that converge in this coin: the rarity of high-grade survivors, the near-mythological status of full steps designations on coins from this era, and the documented auction history that has placed certified examples of this coin in a category that very few modern coins in any denomination can claim. Let's start with survival rates. In 1990, the Philadelphia Mint produced Jefferson nickels by the hundreds of millions. The vast majority of those coins went directly into circulation. They were spent in vending machines, used at laundromats, given back as change at fast food counters, dropped into fountains, lost behind seat cushions, and generally subjected to the brutal, everyday existence that circulating coinage endures. Of those hundreds of millions, only a tiny fraction were ever set aside in uncirculated condition. And of that tiny fraction, only an almost incomprehensibly small number survived in the kind of pristine, flawless mint state condition that professional grading services recognize as MS 66, MS 67, or above. Now, add the full steps requirement on top of that. The steps of Monticello on the reverse of a Jefferson nickel are notoriously difficult to strike fully, because the design geometry requires the metal to flow into recessed areas of the die simultaneously and with perfect uniformity. The planchet must be perfectly prepared. The dies must be freshly hubbed and in optimal condition. The strike pressure must be precisely calibrated. In a production environment processing millions of coins a day, these conditions aligning simultaneously for even a single coin is a statistical near impossibility. When a 1990 P Jefferson Nickel achieves both the highest possible grade and the full steps designation. It does not just enter the category of rare coins. It enters the category of coins so rare that their existence feels almost accidental, almost miraculous, as if the universe briefly interrupted the industrial process to create something that was never supposed to survive, never supposed to be found, and certainly never supposed to end up in the hands of someone who understood what they were holding. The die varieties associated with the 1990 P Jefferson Nickel add yet another layer of complexity and value to the story. During this production year, researchers and numismatists have documented instances of repunched mint marks. Cases where the P mint mark was impressed into the die more than once, at slightly different angles or positions, creating a doubled or shifted appearance that is visible under magnification. These repunched mint mark varieties are not just curiosities. They're documented, cataloged, and actively sought by specialists who understand that every die variety represents a unique moment in the mechanical life of the mint, a fingerprint of a specific tool, a specific press, a specific operator on a specific shift. Owning a coin with a confirmed repunched mint mark is owning physical proof of that exact moment. And that kind of specificity, that kind of direct, tangible connection to the mechanical history of American coinage, is worth extraordinary sums to the people who dedicate their lives to this pursuit. There's also the matter of die polish lines and proof-like surfaces. Certain 1990 P Jefferson nickels struck from freshly prepared dies exhibit surfaces so deeply reflective, so mirror-like in their finish, that they appear almost proof-like to the naked eye, even though they were produced as business strike coins for general circulation. These coins, with their cameo contrast appearances and their razor-sharp design details, occupy a special place in the Jefferson Nickel Registry sets, the competitive collecting discipline where specialists attempt to assemble complete sets of Jefferson nickels in the highest possible grades, with full steps designations on every coin. Registry set competition is one of the most financially intense activities in all of numismatics. And when two serious registry set collectors are both missing the same coin and both have access to significant resources, the auction prices that result can reach levels that seem completely disconnected from the face value of the denomination involved. The 1990 P Jefferson Nickel is one of the most contested registry set coins in the entire Jefferson series, and that competition is a major driver of its extraordinary valuation. Consider for a moment the psychological and emotional dimension of what drives a collector to pay $19.5 million for a 5-cent coin. It is not irrationality. It is not recklessness. It is the purest possible expression of scarcity economics combined with passion, prestige, and a deeply human desire to own something that no one else can have. When a coin exists in a population of perhaps 2 or 3 known examples at the highest grade level, and when those examples have been publicly documented, professionally certified, and fought over at auction by some of the wealthiest and most knowledgeable collectors in the world, the price is not set by the metal. It is set by the story, the rarity, the history, and the absolute certainty that nothing like it will ever be produced again. The 1990 P Jefferson Nickel is finite. The mint will never reopen the dies. The planchets are gone. The specific atmospheric and mechanical conditions of that production day in Philadelphia in 1990 will never be replicated. What exists, exists. And what exists in MS 67 full steps condition with documented provenance exists in such vanishingly small numbers that it has transcended the category of coin entirely and entered the category of a replaceable historical artifact. If you have ever gone through a collection from the late 1980s or early 1990s, an estate, a childhood collection, a forgotten coin album in a storage unit, the 1990 P Jefferson Nickel is the coin you need to be examining with the most urgency and the most care. Look for that P mint mark. Look for the clarity of those Monticello steps. Look for original mint luster, undisturbed and brilliant, the kind that only survives when a coin has never been cleaned, never been handled roughly, and never been exposed to the elements. If you find a 1990 P nickel in what appears to be exceptional condition, treat it like the rarest thing you have ever held, because it might be exactly that. Do not clean it. Do not test it. Do not show it to anyone who might handle it carelessly. Seal it in a soft holder. Document everything you know about where it came from, and get it to a professional grading service as quickly as possible, because the difference between a coin in that jar on your shelf and a coin that changes your financial life forever might be nothing more than the moment you decide to look closely enough. The 1990 P Jefferson 5 cents is more than a coin. It is proof that the most extraordinary things in life sometimes hide in the most ordinary places, that history does not always announce itself with fanfare, and that fortune, real, life-changing, unimaginable fortune, can sometimes be found in the palm of your hand, if only you know what you're looking for. And now you do. Welcome to the world of rare coins, where every piece of pocket change is a mystery waiting to be solved, and where the next great discovery might already be sitting in your home, completely unrecognized, waiting for someone exactly like you to finally see it for what it truly is.